and welcome to Trail Trials, a video review section of iRunFar.com. My name is Travis Lyles, and in this video, we're going to take a look at the Norda 005. Let's check it out. All right, let's start off with the specs on the Norda 005. This is from the brand Norda. This is their third, though they've got a bunch of variations, but they had the 01, the 02, there's an 03 that's kind of an approach, recovery, slip-on type of shoe, but I'd say for trail running, this is their third official shoe, and they went all in on this one. So this is a 21.5 millimeter toe, a 28.5 millimeter heel for a 7 millimeter drop. Listed on the website in a men's size 8.5. The shoe weighs in at 7.5 ounces, so super lightweight. It's got a really interesting upper made from some not necessarily seen type of material. It's got a brand new type of midsole that's supposed to be bouncy and durable. And last but not least, down here on the bottom, using Vibram's Mega Grip Elite, which is the newest, latest, and greatest compound, weighing in super light, being super sticky from the Vibram company. So let's get up close and personal. Let's see what this shoe is all about. All right, so let's start off here and talk a little bit about sizing. This is a US 9.5. I generally wear a 9 in Saucony, in Nike, in Hoka, just to give a couple of brands there. Norda actually recommends going up a half size. If you're kind of in between sizes, you may need to experiment kind of up a half or up a full, depending on kind of where you like and how you like your toes to wiggle at all. All right, so let's start off by talking about the outsole here. And so this is using Vibram Mega Grip Elite. This is a new compound from Vibram. It is super sticky. It's a combo of Mega Grip, which you see very much in the trail running industry. You see Light Base, which is the lightweight version of Mega Grip. And then this adds the third portion here, which is the Elite. So it's sticky and it's even lighter than the other ones. And so throughout this shoe, you're going to see this sort of line that's being walked between performance, lightweight, and durability. And so there's a bit of a combo of all of those three things at play, and it's sort of a compromise in some places and it's a benefit in others. So it just sort of depends on kind of what you're looking for in a shoe. But Light Base all up, very sticky. When you're walking on smooth surfaces, slick surfaces, you can hear this. It actually feels like peeling tape off of the ground. It's very, very sticky, and I think performs well in a lot of scenarios where other compounds don't, in terms of the traction and sort of sticking to slick surfaces. Where I don't think it does as well, sort of in the tread area. And so you can see from the tread pattern, you have a little bit of this starting of these forward-facing lugs that sort of dig in as you're going uphill, and you've got a little bit of that here in the back. And then there's sort of these like T things, and I just didn't feel great about this tread patterning here. It's fine, but that's kind of as much as I want to give to it. But I think it's important to break up tread pattern versus the outsole material. And so sticky does well on slick stuff. This stuff does not do great on, I think, places where traction is a premium. They're just kind of short, and I just don't know that this sort of lug design does anything for it that's special. So I would like a little more grip out of this, but just want to call that out as something to think about. But overall, you have complete coverage across the whole shoe. There's no cutouts. And I would say the fact that this is a 7.5 ounce shoe, that they're able to do that, is a testament to just how lightweight the Mega Grip Elite is. Next up, let's look at the midsole here. It's a single density foam. It's very squishy. It's very flexible, but it's also very responsive and stable. It's sort of a unicorn of a midsole. Like, I feel about as good on mile 100 plus training in this shoe as I do mile 1. And so anybody that's had these shoes that are kind of high bounce and high rebound knows that over time, they get sort of a dead feeling as time goes on. You know, I'm not at mile 300, 400, 500 in this shoe, but at 0, they felt great at mile 1, and I think they feel about the same now. And as I look at it, right, you can see a little bit of kind of this veining and that sort of stuff, but it's not really compressed down, right? We don't have a ton of this like wrinkling that can happen on other shoes over time. where the midsole flattens out. So this compound feels great, moves great. Like, I wear it on roads. You can see that from some of this black on the tar in the bottom. And I'd say from a propulsion standpoint, this shoe feels as good to me as just about any other road shoe that I have, if not better. So I actually really like these for road, despite the fact that light base Mega Grip Elite may sort of wear down over time because it's not as long a living outsole. But your foot sits down inside of it a little bit here. You kind of sit down a little bit below this line, which adds to some of the stability of the midsole. And this is a wider platform. You can just see it by the way that it's lined out, right? You don't have this like very narrow archway and all that. Like, this shoe fits overall kind of wide. And again, for a super shoe, for a fast shoe, for kind of that model of race shoe, it's good to have one that's got a little more space in it versus being really about being narrow and pointy and precise. So again, we'll talk about the upper here, but just know overall there's room for your toes to wiggle and you don't feel like super smashed in and cramped in this shoe. Next up is the upper, and this is made out of Dyneema. And if you're not familiar with that material, it's the same type of material that's used in marine applications. So think a sail on a boat would be made out of this. So it's really high strength at low weight is what this is really about. And I would say if you've checked out Norda at all, this is the best implementation that I think that they've had. This is the most fabric-y, and you can see it and kind of hear it in the way that it feels. It's less crinkly and kind of papery feeling. A lot of ultralight backpacks are made out of Dyneema. It's the same type of thing, and you know it's that like whitish color with the grids in it. Same type of concept and material here. This is just on the upper, and what you're getting out of that is high durability, high abrasion resistance, while being super, super lightweight, so it won't tear, hopefully, as much as mesh. And if I look at the shoe overall, even in some of these like pinch points on other shoes, you might see some fraying and things like that. None of this, despite, being dirty and muddy and going through, various conditions here in the Pacific Northwest. I think it's holding up really well. Even these things that are bonded onto the upper, there's a little bit of wrinkling, but you're not seeing any tears, which, just in today's shoe industry, you see a whole lot of that. So again, durability on the upper, durability on the midsole. And as a brand, they really try to push that idea of durability overall. Okay, a couple other things here. Very, very simple tongue. It is very much just this like suede type material. Very slick, very smooth, very minimal, but not too bad in terms of locking the shoe down on top of your foot. I don't feel a lot of pressure point, on here, which some shoes can kind of do that. I don't know what it is specifically. There is no padding here, but I don't feel like I get a ton of like pressure on the top. It could be because this is just a wider type of fit. There is a bit of gusseting in here that I can show. So that's right here, this material to keep the dirt out, and that gusseting goes from down at the bottom eyelet just about up to the second to the top eyelet. And then the other thing I'll note here is in here, you can kind of see this, looks like a little bit of a glove, but basically what that is a way to keep the upper and the laces at a little bit of a cage on the inside. And so from a Norda standpoint, if you've worn them before, this is the most locked down of the 1 or the 2. I can't say on the 3s, those are slip-ons, but overall, this is the most precise fit of the Nordas. But because you have a 7.5 ounce shoe that's very loose upper, paired up with this heel that's very loose and malleable, is just not a super, super lockdown fit for my foot. But it is way better. They've added in these little pods on the side that just add some more, 1, comfort, and 2, volume to sort of squeeze your foot in there. But you see there's no heel cup here, so you lose rigidity. Maybe adds comfort, but you lose rigidity back here. And it also just can't lock down. You can see like even when you pull it this way, it sort of like allows this to like move around. So you lose a little bit on the stability front with this upper, but again, you've got that cage on the inside, which is definitely a welcome change. The laces are 4mm versus 5mm. Again, a weight saving, and they've got Dyneema in them, which is supposed to add durability. I had trouble keeping them tied, both in wet and dry conditions, so they're ones that you need to double knot. And then the last thing I'm going to call out is the shoe actually comes with 2 pairs of insoles. So this is your daily insole that you wear. You can see it's cupped. It's more of a standard look of an insole, and then it comes with race insoles. And if you look at this one, you can see kind of the difference here. This is very, very flat. It's just supposed to slide in there. This is all about weight, and I guess again with durability, these both come in the box, so you wear these for training, and then when you're going out and racing, you swap those out, so you've got your other one, and then something a little more springy and less broke down, but also weight saving. So they really concentrate on sort of the race readiness of this shoe. So with all that said, let's get up and let's talk about final impressions. In closing, there's a lot to like about this shoe. I think in terms of a new shoe company, you're seeing like the maturation happen. The 001 to the 002 to this 5, they've all gotten, in my opinion, and sort of my foot shape, they've all got progressively better. They've gotten a little bit tighter with their tolerances, they locked down a little bit better, and then of course they really went after it with this shoe, sort of going in that super shoe model, but not having carbon and some of the other sort of standard stuff. And so they took super shoe plus durability and tried to like put those two together so it's not like a one and done type of shoe that you just sort of wear for race day. And so I really like that concept. So let's talk about the negatives that I felt. And so one of those is still the upper. So despite being the best upper of the 3, it's still sort of, it's a single piece. The shoe weighs 7.5 ounces. It's really hard to get enough stuff in there to lock this down. And you generally see that across the industry, right? The lighter you go, the less materials, the less sort of place you have to sort of play with all of the things. So you want something really locked down and stable, it's probably going to be heavier. So this does ride a nice middle ground, but for me, I'm going to sort of pick where I'm going to be. If I'm spending a big day in really, really overly technical stuff, this is probably not going to be the shoe that I'm going to grab for. But if I have a race that's got a combination of fire roads, some trail that's maybe not super rocky that I'm spending a whole bunch of time on, this is a great shoe. The midsole performs super, super well. It feels good. It feels fast. It's light. It kind of does what you need it to. But if I'm looking for something where my foot's really going to be moving around a lot and fighting terrain, there's just a lot of upper kind of looseness that's not going to provide what I tend to look for. A couple other things is the laces. They constantly came untied on me, whether they were wet, whether they were dry. And so is that a complaint that's worth bringing up? I don't know. They bring up laces on the website about how the laces are 4mm versus 5mm to save weight. And I just feel like if I'm putting $325 in a pair of shoes that's a race shoe, I don't want to have to double knot them because I might need to adjust them and I might need to, whatever, but I don't want to stop and have to retie them because they've come untied on me. So a minor thing for me, but something I think worth calling out. The heel cup is a little bit loose. And then I think lastly, on the sort of complaint side, is the outsole. And it's not the traction. This rubber's, I thought, really great. It hasn't really worn down like I thought it would, despite it being a compound that's supposed to be a little more race ready, high sticky, high friction. It performs on that. But the lugs, I just didn't feel like really bite the way that I would want them to. They're kind of shallow. They don't really have a lot of aggressive bite on the bottom. And again, you're sort of weighing this thing between traction and weight and speed and all these sort of things. So I get it. But I think patterning wise, they just don't add a lot of sort of grip one way or the other. But overall, I mean, in the race for super shoe, I think this is what I would lean towards. I don't like carbon plates. I feel like they're just too much. So something like this that has a midsole that is built to last, and that's sort of the function, like go out and run lots of races in this shoe, and the feel and the bounce and all that stuff that you had on day one is going to be the same, hundreds of miles down the road. I like that approach because then that means spending that type of money, if that's the world we're in, gives you a little more value, gives you more miles per dollar, right? And so, you know, there's some things to weigh with this, but I think in this current crop of super shoes and this current crop of experimentation, the 005 is a really great shoe, and one that you can see that I've worn and will continue to wear even after this. But again, I'm going to be a little bit choosy in when I bring that on. But if I've got a little more manageable day, manageable single track, not overly technical or just portions and pieces of technical, this is a shoe that can really fly and sort of stays on your foot, my foot, just well enough to get me to the finish line. So with that, questions, comments, feedback, your thoughts on the Super Shoe Revolution, leave those below this video. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you next time.